Hello and welcome to Stories and Lessons. This is Tim Winnicky with Empowered Change. I didn't get to celebrate the 10th episode with you all because I had already recorded Jeff's interview and it was great and I didn't want to mess up the release, but I'm really excited that we're all the way up in double digits now. I didn't know that we'd get here. It's meant a lot to me that you all have been listening, and it's been great having all the support and all the guests on. I'm really excited about some of the guests we have coming up. The fact that we made it to 10 feels like it's made it over a major hump for me, and I'm really excited to keeping these things going, and I can't wait to celebrate our 100th episode with you all. So thank you so much for listening. Now let's dive into today's story. I noticed that my personal stories, these individual stories, have been generally a little sad, been kind of a bummer. Overall good stories. Generally, I feel like for me, they're those pain points that we grow from and that they get exciting. But I wanted to share a story that had a little bit more joy to it, because we can certainly get important life lessons out of those. And they're good stories as well. So today, the story I'm going to share with you is me moving to Denver and picking up from where we left off last time, where my dad helped me realize that it was time for me to go and that I wasn't going to be the one to take care of my father and that this was going to be the next step for me. So, if you listen to the last episode, we left off with me leaving my father, my brother, and my mother in a trepidatious position, right? Things weren't great at home, and I was excited. The trip out to visit John and Dee Dee was the best month of my life at that point. They are wonderful people. They certainly helped, just by being who they were, they helped alleviate some of the nerves I had about trying to start out with college. And I get off the plane with my backpack and a rolling suitcase, and we pull into their place, and they couldn't be more warm and welcoming. You'd have to meet them. You'd have to know John, but they are just incredibly kind people. And it was very clear that they were excited to have me, and they really wanted to make the experience possible and just good. So I show up, and the first feeling is, it felt like I was moving into a guest room, because that's exactly what it was. I didn't have any of my things. I had clothes. To be fair, I didn't have much in the way of stuff back then. I also kind of made the decision in moving out that I wanted to really have a fresh start with things. I wanted to make it so that I wasn't bringing more baggage from home than I needed to, and I didn't want to clutter up their space. So because of that, when I go to settle into the room, it's been decorated by two 50-year-olds with PhDs from the Ivy League. Let's just say the room didn't feel like anything that I even recognized. It was warm, it was comfortable, and felt very out of place for me. And they let me kind of settle in. We had a nice dinner. And the whole time I was just kind of a little afraid. I mean, they're wonderful. This is great, but I'm a little afraid that I'm going to screw it up, or that this isn't going to kind of fix things for me. I have this propensity for avoiding challenges by not trying. High school was epitomized by this. If I didn't try, it didn't matter if I got C's or even D's, as long as I passed with minimal effort, because the story I could tell myself is that, well, I could have gotten A's if I, put any effort in at all. And so this was basically calling that BS. Here I was, I had left home, I had left my family, I had all of the support that I could want. I had two wonderful people that had PhDs that were going to help me, and I needed to go to college. But I couldn't just lean into that right away. I had to take some time, and John and Dee Dee weren't my blood. They're not my family, so I wanted to make sure that I was contributing something. All the way through high school, I either contributed money or labor to the house I was living in, and these people aren't my family. Like, they're very dear to me, but we're not family. So the next day, after kind of thinking about it all night and figuring out what I wanted to do, I came up and had this piece of paper that I had written out kind of how many hours a week I could work with going to college and the money that I could bring in and how much rent I could pay John and Dee Dee. Now, to give you an idea, John and Dee Dee at this point were probably at some of the high points of their career. John worked for the Federal Trade Commission as a PhD economist and did fairly well. And Dee Dee was on the board of directors for the Natural Museum of Science and History. And they had just bought a gorgeous house in downtown Denver, 2 blocks away from a park. No amount of money I was going to bring in was going to impact the household. But I didn't know that. I had no concept of what having real money looked like. So I wait until they're home from work and pull them in, and I was like, okay, guys, I really want to talk to you. It's really important. And they look a little confused, and they go to sit down with me, and I break out my scribbled on piece of paper, and they let me do like a 15-20 minute explanation of where I was going to get a job in the next 2 weeks, and that I could only afford $300 a month from that job because I was really worried about college, and I didn't think it was going to be good to work more than 15 or 20 hours a week. And I didn't really know what to do, but I wanted to make sure I was contributing. Talking about it now, my voice is speeding up. Going back to this memory, I was so nervous. I was so afraid that they were going to tell me that it wasn't enough, that they were going to tell me that my contribution was not going to be enough that I could stay, that it was ridiculous for me to think that I should limit my time working to go to school. To their credit, they let me go through my whole spiel. And at the end, they kind of look at each other. And you know those couples that have been together like 20 years where they look at each other and all of a sudden you know that quite a bit of information has passed? It was one of those looks. And Dee Dee looked at me and says, Tim, I don't think you understand what this is. You are not giving us anything. We're not going to give you any money. We're not going to be so ridiculous as to give you an allowance or something like that. You're grown, but you're certainly not paying for anything related to living here. You will never pay for groceries. You will never pay for rent. You will never pay any of the bills. Your sole responsibility, the only thing we expect from you for being here is that you go to school. That's it. That's all you got to do. And it was such a weird and surreal moment for me because that had never been part of my existence. There was always other things. School on my list of things to do was usually 4th or 5th. You know, there was work to be done. There was stuff with mom or Sean or the house to manage. There were my friends or girls to chase, but school was never anywhere near my priority list. And now I was basically just told that it was my only priority, and that's all I would have to do. And it was really surreal. I then tried to talk them into taking the money. I probably spent another 5 minutes explaining that, you know, while it's not much, and I know it's a small amount of money, it's what I can give, and if I'm going to be living there, that it's important for me to contribute. And they just stayed very firm and very kind and said, no, you know, you should go get a job. You should have some money because we're not, you know, like we said before, we're not going to give you running around money or anything like that. But your only responsibility here is that you get to be a college student. You don't have any other worries here. And it took a few days for that to sink in. I think the best moment for that was I went grocery shopping with John. And groceries growing up were always kind of odd. If you've ever not had money, going grocery shopping is kind of trepidatious, right? You don't want to get anything frivolous. You're worried that you can't afford to get the things you need. And when I was a kid, I adored Chef Boyardee. It was like the biggest treat ever. It was one of those things that I generally only got when things were really good at home or that I went over to my grandparents' house. So now here I am. I'm a 19-year-old pseudo man, and I'm running around with John through the grocery store, and he's like, yeah, you know, do you want anything? You know, anything you want, just throw it in the cart. It's fine. And we're walking down the aisles and we go by the canned food section. And I see the Chef Boyardee section and I look at John and I kind of guiltily go on. I'm like, can I have some of this? And he just kind of looks at me a little confused. He's like, you want like canned ravioli? That's pretty horrible. We can go get real ravioli. If you want ravioli, we can make it up for dinner tonight. And I'm like, no. I really, I eat a lot and I would, it's a good snack for me. And I literally got like 10 cans of ravioli and then proceeded to eat them over the next week. And I swear to God, it was like returning to all those moments in childhood where I couldn't quite have what I wanted and I got it. It was ridiculous. I almost kind of regressed to this little kid. And from there, over the next year with them, I really got to explore and lean in to what it was like to only be concerned with one thing. I was still in touch with my family. I'd call them. To my father's credit, he really didn't let me get embroiled or involved in any of the bullshit at home. He just, talked to me about his day, told me what Sean was doing in school. We talked about what was going on with John and Dee Dee, and I missed them and I missed him. But they didn't let me in on any of the crisis or any of the other day-to-day kind of drama. And there was this really profound moment. I was really nervous going to college, like I mentioned. I hadn't done anything, and it turns out that I really couldn't read. I read my first book over the summer break between high school and college, that 125-page fantasy novel. And John, bless him, was very excited to start getting me to read. So he would go to the bookstore and we would buy all these books, and he would get all excited about sharing these science fiction and fantasy novels that he loved. And that was all very exciting, but I had no idea how to read academic writing. And I had no idea how to do any kind of math. So my first semester in college, I had to take almost all remedial courses. I had to go back I guess I don't even know what the determination be would, like pre-college math, pre-college English, and take those. But I did them, and I did them fairly well at the community college. And I was now in college algebra at the end of this first year. And so far, I had gotten all A's, and those A's were incredibly important to me. I needed them to prove to myself that I belonged there. I needed those grades to prove that I should be in college, that now that I was leaning in on the effort, that I was going to be successful, and that I wasn't wasting the gifts that John and Dee Dee were giving me to be there. And I got a B on a test. I was livid and devastated that I got this B. I made it all the way home, but when I got home, I went into my bedroom and I literally had like a little mini breakdown, like tears, like ugly crying, right? Snot balls, the whole bit, just berating myself. Oh, you stupid fuck. You thought you could be here. You thought you could do good. And look at you. You can't even get an A in a freshman level math course. You're an idiot. And I indulged myself for like 5 minutes having this little meltdown. And then at the end of it, I kind of come back and I just start laughing. You know that relief when you have that tension where all of a sudden you've kind of gone around the bend a little bit and you come back and something happens where you're just like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. This is just stupid. And I just start laughing, like really hard, like belly laughing, like can't breathe. And I'm sure anybody looking from the outside would have wanted me committed, right? Going from like miserable crying to borderline hysterical laughter. And the thing I thought that had me laughing like that was, you didn't cry when your mother was in her accident. You didn't cry when Dad had his heart attack. You didn't freak out at any other point like this. And all of a sudden, you can freak out over a B. Your life must be pretty good. And all of a sudden, it took a full year for this to happen, but it all clicked in place. This is what it's like when you have stability. This is what it's like when you're doing the things you're supposed to do and you have supportive people around you that have space to help, all of a sudden you can actually stress about little things and you can try. And that was the moment that I realized that I didn't have to be my past. I didn't have to be this, dramatic, constantly in crisis person. That I could be whole. I could focus. I could push forward. I could do things. And I knew I wasn't there yet, right? I had just gotten done having this borderline hysterical, meltdown and then hysterical laughing, acting like a crazy person. But it's when I started to try, and it's when I started to pay attention, and it's when I started to get selective about who I let in my life and who I wanted to be to the people around me. If it hadn't been for John and Dee Dee's support, if it hadn't been for my father freeing me to go and try, I don't know that I would have ever had the space to make that recollection. I don't know that I would ever have the wherewithal to try and be aware that there was something else to do. And I'm really thankful for it. So the lesson for today's story is, so often, and I constantly see this with my clients, it's been bad for so long that they forget what good feels like. It's been stressful and horrible and painful for whatever they're going through for so long that they can't lean in and enjoy stability. They can't lean in and enjoy the support for the people around them. And it's fair. It takes time to do. But don't let your past dictate the enjoyment you can have of your present and your future. And don't let who you've been and the people you've had in your past dictate who you're going to be now and who you're going to connect with in the future. It's a wonderful feeling when you finally realize that all the work that you've done and all the connections you've made are start to pay off. Don't let your fear get in the way any more than it has to. Thank you again so much for listening. It means a lot to me just to share these stories. I'm really excited about some of the interviews we've got lined up coming up in the future. If you've enjoyed today at all, please like and subscribe and review on wherever you're listening to this. Follow us on Facebook, empowered.change.c.e. And if you want to know more about the episode, if you want to hear about what I've got going on out in the world, or what some of the guests have gone on and done, please go to the website, www.empoweredchangece.com. Have a great day.